They call it logistics. I call it babysitting 3,000 tons of steel, rubber, and human stupidity moving at 70 miles per hour across the continental United States. My name is Judy. For 22 years, I've been the invisible glue holding Arcadia freight systems together. You don't know me, but if you bought a toaster in the Midwest, a avocado in February, or a generator after a hurricane, I'm the reason it got there. I'm the contract renewal specialist, which is corporate speak for the woman who knows where the bodies are buried and has the shovel in her trunk. I don't have a corner office with a view of the skyline. I have a cubicle that smells like stale Dunkin' Donuts coffee and printer toner, buried deep in the operational bowels of the building. And I like it that way. The quiet allows me to hear the hum of the machine. I know when a port strike in Long Beach is going to screw up a delivery in Omaha 3 days before the union boss even decides to pick up a picket sign. I know which trucking consortiums are padding their mileage and which ones will drive through a blizzard because they owe me a favor from 2008. But let's get one thing straight before I tell you how I burned this place to the ground. I didn't want to be a hero. I just wanted to do my damn job. Hey, real quick, before I get into the blood and guts of how I took down a $1 billion empire with a single email, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button and upvote this story. It helps the algorithm know you like watching train wrecks in slow motion. Thanks. Now, back to the carnage. The problem started, as it always does, with a funeral. Old man Henderson, the founder, didn't die, but he retired to a vineyard in Tuscany that probably cost more than the GDP of a small island nation. He was a bastard, sure, but he was a bastard who knew the price of diesel. We respected each other. We had an understanding. I kept his trucks moving, and he kept the checks clearing. Then came Travis. Travis Henderson, 32 years old. MBA from a school his daddy paid for a library wing to get him into. Teeth so white they looked like they were radioactive. He walked into the CEO's office wearing a suit that cost more than my car, smelling like sandalwood and unearned confidence. He didn't know a pallet jack from a potato sack, but suddenly he was the captain of the ship. His first week, he installed a kombucha tap in the break room. His second week, he fired the entire janitorial staff to outsource for efficiency, which meant the toilets backed up within 48 hours. By month 3, he was walking around the floor with a woman named Crystal with a K, who was apparently our new director of vibes or operations liaison, or whatever title you give your side piece to get her on the payroll. I kept my head down. I'm a professional. I've survived 3 recessions, a global pandemic, and a cyber attack that required me to route trucks using a paper map and a payphone. I could survive Travis, or so I thought. The friction wasn't immediate. It was a slow grind, like sand in a gearbox. Travis didn't like me. I was legacy. I was analog. I was a middle-aged woman in a cardigan who refused to use Slack because I preferred to pick up the phone and scream at people until the job got done. To him, I was a relic. To me, he was a hood ornament on a Mack truck, shiny, fragile, and completely useless when you hit a deer. I remember the day the dynamic shifted. It was a Tuesday. I was deep in the weeds renegotiating a massive contract with the Gulf Coast Stevedores Union. These guys are tough. They eat nails for breakfast and negotiate with baseball bats. I had been on the phone with their rep, Big Sal, for 4 hours, massaging a 2% rate hike into a deal that would keep our Gulf shipping lanes open for another 5 years. Travis breezed by my desk, Crystal trailing behind him like a lost puppy in Laubautins. Judy, he said, not stopping, just tossing the words over his shoulder like a gum wrapper. We need to talk about your desk. It's cluttered, bad optics for investors. My desk was covered in bills of lading, manifests, and legal pads covered in my chicken scratch handwriting. It was the nervous system of the company. I'm in the middle of the Gulf Coast renewal, Travis, I said, covering the receiver. If I clean my desk, you lose New Orleans. He stopped. He turned around, giving me that pitying smile people give to confused elderly relatives. We have software for that now, Judy. Move it to the cloud, and seriously lose the paper. It's 2024, he walked away. Crystal giggled. Big Sal was still on the line. Everything all right, Jude? Fine, Sal, I said, lighting a mental cigarette because I quit the real ones 10 years ago and God, did I miss them. Just a minor glitch in the matrix. Now, about that overtime clause. I saved the deal. I saved the Gulf Coast lane. The company made $40 million on that contract alone over the next quarter. Did I get a thank you? No. I got an email from HR about the clean desk policy. But the breaking point wasn't work. It never is. It's always the personal disrespect that lights the fuse. It was mid-October. Peak season was ramping up. Halloween candy, Thanksgiving turkeys, Christmas junk, everything was moving at once. I was working 12-hour days, fueled by ibuprofen and spite. Then the email landed. Subject, mandatory attendance celebrating visionary leadership. It was an invitation to Travis's birthday party. Join us this Saturday at the Henderson Estate for a night of innovation, celebration, and cocktails as we honor our CEO, Travis Henderson, on his 33rd trip around the sun. Attendance is mandatory for all senior staff. Saturday. Busiest Saturday of the month. The day the Asian imports hit the West Coast ports. The day I had to personally oversee the customs clearance for a massive shipment of pharmaceuticals that, if delayed, would spoil and cost us millions in insurance claims. I looked at the invitation. It was printed on heavy cardstock, embossed with gold foil. It probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I hit reply. Travis, happy early birthday. Unfortunately, I cannot attend. I have the pharmalogistics clearance scheduled for Saturday night. It requires live monitoring due to the temperature-sensitive nature of the cargo. Have a drink for me. Regards, Judy. I thought that was it. Professional, polite, reasonable. I was wrong. The next morning, the office felt different. You know that feeling when the barometric pressure drops right before a tornado touches down? The air was heavy. The phones were too quiet. People were looking at me, then looking away. I sat down, booted up my ancient desktop, and took a sip of my lukewarm coffee. My login failed. Access denied. That's weird, I thought. I typed it again. Access denied. I was reaching for the phone to call IT when I heard the click-clack of heels and the squeak of expensive loafers. Judy. Travis's voice boomed. He wasn't smiling today. I spun my chair around. There he was, flanked by Crystal, holding a clipboard, ironically, and two security guards who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Is the server down? I asked, though deep in my gut, right where the ulcer was starting to form, I knew the answer. We're making some changes, Judy. Travis said. He smoothed his tie. It was a silk knit, bright red. A power tie for a man with no power. We're pivoting to a more agile leadership structure. Your refusal to integrate with the team culture, he paused. Referencing the party without saying it was the final straw. You're not a team player. I stared at him. The silence stretched out, rubber band tight. You're firing me, I stated flatly. Because I'm working this Saturday instead of watching you drink overpriced vodka? It's about culture fit, Crystal chimed in. Her voice was high and nasal. We need people who vibrate on our frequency. I looked at Crystal. I looked at Travis. I looked at the security guards. Travis, I said. I voiced dangerously calm. I manage the contracts for 3,000 vendors. I am the authorized signatory for the Port of Los Angeles, the Teamsters Local 404, and the Cross-Border Customs Alliance. If I leave, those relationships don't just transfer to the cloud. Travis laughed. It was a dry, ugly sound. Everyone is replaceable, Judy. That's business 101. Now, hand over your badge. Security will escort you out. I looked at my desk. Piles of paper, the sticky notes, the little framed photo of my dog, Buster. I stood up. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't flip the table. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my plastic ID badge, and dropped it into Travis's outstretched hand. Okay, I said. Travis looked disappointed. He wanted a scene. He wanted me to beg. He wanted to feel like the big man crushing the rebellion. Tell your dad I said good luck, I added. My dad is in Europe. Travis sneered. He doesn't care about the help. He will, I said. I grabbed my purse. I grabbed the picture of Buster, and I walked out. As the elevator doors closed, cutting off the sight of Travis's smug face, I checked my watch. It was 9:14 a.m. By 9:30 a.m., the first truck would be hitting the way station in Toledo. And by 9:45 a.m., the entire Arcadia Freight Systems network was going to start realizing that the heart had just been ripped out of the body. I wasn't just the help, I was the kill switch. And I had just been triggered. The air outside the office building smelled like exhaust and wet pavement. It was a gray morning, the kind that seeps into your bones, but for the first time in 20 years, I didn't feel the chill. I felt light. I walked across the parking lot to my 2016 Ford Explorer. It had a dent in the rear bumper from a loading dock accident I supervised 3 years ago. I tossed my purse and the picture of Buster onto the passenger seat. I didn't start the car immediately. Instead, I sat there, listening to the rain tap against the roof. Most people, when they get fired after 2 decades of service, they panic. They worry about the mortgage. They worry about health insurance. They worry about their identity. And sure, a part of me was doing that math. I'm a single woman in my 40s. The job market isn't exactly begging for people who know how to manually reconcile a customs manifest from 1998. But another part of me, the part that had dealt with angry truckers, corrupt port officials, and hysterical clients, was already moving into crisis management mode. Except this time, I wasn't managing the crisis for Arcadia. I was the crisis. I pulled out my phone. It was my personal cell, thank God. I've always kept a firewall between my life and the company's property. I opened my email app, not the company email, my access there was cut the second Travis smirked, but my personal Gmail. The address I had given to every major vendor, every union boss, and every port authority director over the last 2 decades. Not for official business, but for emergencies. Call me here if the building burns down, I used to tell them. Well, I struck the match. Now it was time to watch it burn. I didn't send a mass blast, that's amateur hour, that looks like sabotage. No, I needed to be compliant. Maliciously, beautifully compliant. I typed out a draft. Subject, notice of change in authorized representation to whom it may concern, effective immediately, I, Judy Miller. No longer employed by Arcadia Freight Systems. As such, I am no longer the authorized signatory or point of contact for any active service level agreements, SLAs, rate negotiations, or compliance verifications. Per Clause 7B of our Standard Master Service Agreement, Key Personnel Continuity, please be advised that my departure may trigger an automatic review or suspension of credit terms pending the appointment of a qualified successor. Please direct all future urgent matters to Travis Henderson, CEO. Best regards, Judy. I read it over. It was dry, it was factual, it was legally bulletproof. Clause 7B, that was the magic bullet. See, years ago, when Arcadia was expanding aggressively, our credit rating was shaky. Vendors were nervous about getting paid. To soothe them, Old Man Henderson had me insert a clause into our major contracts. Basically said that if the key personnel, me, who held the relationship left the company, the vendor had the right to immediately pause services or demand cash upfront until they vetted the new management. It was a trust clause. They trusted me, not the company. Travis didn't know about Clause 7B. Travis probably thought a master service agreement was a bondage term. I hit send on the first email, then the second, then the third. I went down the list alphabetically. A, B, C, Allied Trucking Consortium. Sent, Bayonne Port Authority. Sent, Canadian Border Services Brokerage. Sent. I sat there for 20 minutes just hitting send. It was rhythmic, therapeutic, like popping bubble wrap, but every pop cost Arcadia $100,000. My phone buzzed. It was Big Sal from the Gulf Coast Union. Judy, what the hell is this email? His voice rumbled, sounding like gravel in a blender. I just got a bounce back from your work address saying user unknown. I'm out, Sal, I said, leaning back in my seat. Travis let me go this morning. Culture fit. Culture fit? Sal laughed, a barking sound. Does he know the ink isn't even dry on the renewal we talked about Tuesday? He doesn't seem to think it matters, Sal. He thinks the software handles it. Software don't buy me a beer when my guys are working Christmas, Sal grumbled. So, who's handling the dispatch for the chemical shipment tonight? That stuff is volatile. If my guys don't have the hazmat clearance code signed by a certified officer. That would be Travis, I said, or maybe Crystal. She vibrates on a high frequency, Sal. I'm sure she can vibrate the hazmat paperwork through. Yeah, no, Sal said. I ain't risking my guys. If you ain't signing off, the trucks don't roll. Clause 7B, right? Clause 7B, I confirmed. Strict adherence to safety protocols. You got it, Jude. Trucks are parking. Enjoy your day off. The line went dead. I smiled, one domino down. I started the car and drove out of the lot. As I turned onto the main road, I passed a line of Arcadia trucks heading inbound. They looked so impressive, those big blue cabs with the silver logo. The drivers had no idea that in about an hour, their fuel cards were going to get declined because the fleet management vendor, Bob from FleetCor, whom I sent a Christmas card to every year, was about to read my email. I didn't go home. I couldn't sit in my apartment and stare at the walls. I needed a command post. I drove to the depot, a greasy spoon diner about 3 miles away. It was a trucker joint. Vinyl booths patched with duct tape, coffee that tasted like battery acid, and eggs that were cooked in grease older than Travis. It was perfect. I walked in. The waitress, Marge, nodded at me. She knew me. I'd spent many late nights here waiting for driver to show up. Coffee, Han? Marge asked. Keep the pot, Marge, and give me the Wi-Fi password again. I set up my laptop on the sticky table. My phone started buzzing again and again and again. Incoming call, Swift Logistics Dispatch. Incoming call, Newark Customs Broker. Incoming call, Travis Henderson, Work. I stared at Travis's name dancing on the screen. I let it ring. He called again immediately. I let it ring again. I took a sip of the battery acid coffee. It tasted like freedom. I opened a new tab on my browser. I wasn't done yet. I had notified the vendors. Now I needed to notify the competitors, but not yet. That was too aggressive. First, I needed to let Travis sweat. I needed him to feel the silence of the phones not ringing in his office and the chaos of the phones ringing in everyone else's. I looked at the clock. 10:45 a.m. At 11 o'clock a.m., the daily cross-dock status meeting was scheduled to happen. Usually I ran it. I would tell the warehouse managers which trucks were late, which bays were open, and which orders were priority. Today, Crystal would be running it. I imagined Crystal standing in front of a room full of grizzled warehouse foremen, holding her clipboard, trying to explain why half the inbound fleet was parked on the side of the highway and why the customs brokers were demanding to speak to a Judy. Sorry, guys, I whispered to the empty diner booth. The frequency is about to get real low. Then a text message popped up, not from a vendor, from Linda, the payroll manager. She was a good egg. Quiet, religious, baked excellent brownies. Linda, Judy, OMG, are you gone? Travis is screaming in the hallway. He says you sabotaged the server. He can't access the vendor portal. I chuckled. I didn't sabotage anything. I just had the two-factor authentication code sent to my personal cell phone. Because IT, which was outsourced to a cheap firm in generic overseas location, had set it up that way 5 years ago and never changed it. I texted back. I didn't touch the server, Linda. But tell him the 2FA code expires in 60 seconds. He might want to hurry. I didn't send him the code. I just took a bite of my toast. The war had begun, and I had the high ground. The diner was filling up with the lunch rush. Drivers, construction workers, guys with names like Mac and Bud wearing neon vests. It was a symphony of clattering plates and blue-collar gossip. In the middle of it, I was the conductor of a silent orchestra of disaster. My laptop screen was a dashboard of my own making. I had a tracking site open, publicly available, by the way, monitoring the movements of Arcadia's fleet. Red dots were appearing on the map. A red dot meant a truck was stationary for more than 30 minutes. There was a cluster of red dots forming outside of Chicago. That would be the Midwest distribution hub. The gate codes for the secure yard were changed weekly. I used to text the new codes to the drivers every Monday morning. Today was Tuesday. We had a security protocol update that required a manual reset. I hadn't done the reset before I left. Travis, in his infinite wisdom, probably didn't even know the gate had a code. He probably thought it opened by magic or the sheer force of his charisma. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was 212 New York. Text, Miss Miller. This is Davidson, legal counsel for Atlantic Heavy Haul. Our trucks are locked out of the Arcadia yard in Jersey. Your office is unresponsive. Are we in breach or are you? I typed back, Mr. Davidson. I am no longer with Arcadia. Please refer to Clause 7B. I cannot authorize entry. Good luck. 3 minutes later, another red dot appeared on the map in New Jersey. It was working. The system wasn't breaking, it was freezing. It was a safety mechanism, like when the human body goes into shock to preserve the vital organs. The vendors were protecting themselves because the guarantor of their safety, me, was gone. I ordered a refill on the coffee. Marge poured it with a heavy hand. You look like you're planning a bank heist, sugar, she said, eyeing my laptop. Better, Marge, I said, I'm auditing one. At 12:30 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't Travis this time. It was the frantic, breathless voice of Crystal. I debated not answering, but curiosity is a vice and I'm a sinner. This is Judy, I answered, my voice professional, calm, the voice of a woman who isn't currently watching a company implode. Judy, Crystal shrieked. She sounded like she was crying or hyperventilating. You have to give us the passwords. The drivers are calling the police. They're stuck at the gates. Crystal, I said gently. I don't have the passwords. They're on the server. We can't get into the server. Keeps asking for codes sent to your phone. Ah, I said, that's the two-factor authentication. Security protocol, very important for data integrity. Well, give me the code, she screamed. I can't, Crystal. I'm a civilian now. Sharing security credentials with unauthorized personnel is a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. I could go to jail. You wouldn't want that, would you? There was a silence on the other end, a stunned, baffled silence. But Travis says you're holding the company hostage. Travis fired me, Crystal, effectively immediately. That means my clearance is revoked. If I give you that code, I'm hacking. I won't break the law for a company I don't work for. I'm putting you on speaker, she hissed. Judy, it was Travis. His voice was tight, strained. The arrogance was cracked, leaking panic. Stop playing games. Give us the code or I'm suing you for corporate sabotage. Travis, I said, leaning into the... You fired me for culture fit. You said I was replaceable. Surely your agile leadership team can figure out how to reset a password with the IT provider? We called IT. They said the account admin has to authorize the reset. That's you. Sounds like a flaw in your org chart, I said. I'd suggest you call the IT provider's emergency line. It costs $5,000 a minute, but they can override it in, oh, maybe 24 hours. 24 hours. Travis exploded. We have 400 tons of frozen seafood sitting in Miami. It'll rot. Seafood, I mused. That's tricky. You need the reefer units running. Did you renew the fuel cards for the refrigeration trucks? Those expire on the 15th of the month. Today is the 16th. I usually handle that manually because the automated system glitches with the Florida vendors. I heard a thud. It sounded like someone punching a desk. Fix it, Judy. Come back in. Fix it and maybe we won't sue you. Are you offering me my job back? I asked. I'm offering you a chance to not be destroyed. He yelled. No thanks, I said. I'm busy. I'm cleaning my apartment. Feng shui, very important for the vibes. I hung up. I stared at the phone. My hand was shaking slightly, not from fear but from adrenaline. I had just hung up on the CEO of a billion-dollar company. I looked at the map. More red dots. A cluster in Miami now. Seafood? I felt a twinge of guilt. Not for Travis, but for the seafood and the drivers. The drivers were the innocent pawns here. I opened my contact list. I found the number for Miami Mike, the foreman at the cold storage facility where our trucks were likely idling. I texted him, Mike, it's Judy, I'm out. The kid is driving the bus off a cliff. The fuel cards are gonna bounce. Don't let the drivers sit there. Tell them to decouple and hook up to the shore power at your yard. Charge it to the emergency contingency account. I set it up 3 years ago. It's pre-funded. Mike texted back instantly, Roger that, Mama Bear. I heard the news. We got you. Screw the kid. We'll save the shrimp, but we ain't releasing the trucks until you say so. I smiled. The shrimp were safe. The drivers were safe. Travis was screwed. I realized then that I wasn't just unemployed. I was a freelancer, and my currency was influence. I closed the laptop. The diner rush was dying down. I needed to make a move. Sitting here was reactive. I needed to be proactive. I thought about who stood to gain the most from Arcadia's collapse. Global Logistics Corp. GLC, our biggest rival. Their regional VP, a shark named Marcus Thorne, had been trying to poach me for a decade. I always said no out of loyalty to old man Henderson. Loyalty is a two-way street, and Travis had just paved over it. I picked up my phone. I dialed Marcus's number. He answered on the second ring. Judy Miller, his smooth baritone voice purred. To what do I owe the pleasure? Did you finally get tired of saving the world for peanuts? I'm free, Marcus, I said. Free? Fired this morning. There was a pause, a thoughtful, expensive pause. Where are you? He asked. At the depot on Route 9. Stay there, Marcus said. I'm sending a car, we have lunch, and we talk about the future. Marcus, I said, one thing, yes, I'm not coming alone. Oh, I'm bringing the Port of Los Angeles, the Gulf Coast Union, and the Canadian Border Control with me. I could practically hear him smiling through the phone. I'll send the limo, he said. A black Mercedes S-Class pulls up to a truck stop diner. It sticks out like a diamond in a pile of coal. The driver, a guy who looks like he doubles as a bouncer for a high-end club, opens the door for me. I grab my beat-up tote bag and my laptop. Marge behind the counter whistles. Moving up in the world, Judy? Just a different kind of ride, Marge, I say. I slide into the back seat. It smells like new leather and money. As we glide onto the highway, heading toward the business district, I check the news on my phone. Nothing on the major networks yet. Logistics is boring until it breaks, but the industry trade blogs are lighting up. FreightWaves headline, Arcadia Systems reporting major IT outage, ports gridlocked. The Lodestar, who is Judy Miller? Why truckers are refusing to move for Arcadia Freight? I almost laugh, I'm trending. In the weirdest, nerdiest corner of the internet, I am a celebrity. My phone vibrates, a voicemail, it's from my mother. Linda, the payroll manager, must have called the prayer circle. Judith, my mom's voice quavers. Pastor Dave heard you were fired. We're praying for you. Also, Aunt Barb wants to know if you can still get her that discount on shipping a pallet of ceramic frogs from Mexico. Call me. I rub my temples. Even in the apocalypse, Aunt Barb needs her frogs. We arrive at the Obsidian, a steakhouse downtown where the waiters wear tuxedos and the water costs $9. Marcus Thorne is waiting at a corner table. He looks like a Bond villain who decided to go into supply chain management instead of world domination. Perfectly tailored suit, gray temples, eyes that calculate profit margins in real time. Judy, he stands, offering a hand. You look energized. I look like I've been fired, Marcus, I say, sitting down. Let's cut the crap, you know what's happening. I do, he nods, signaling the waiter. Our dispatchers are reporting a massive uptick in spot market requests. Arcadia loads are being dumped on the open board. Rates are skyrocketing. It's a feeding frenzy. Travis is panicking, I say, unfolding the napkin. He's trying to cover the loads he can't move. But he doesn't have the drivers. And why is that, Judy? Marcus leans in. Why are the drivers parking? Unions don't strike over a mid-level manager getting canned. I'm not mid-level, Marcus. I'm the insurance policy. They know that without me the checks might bounce, the way station tickets won't get paid, and the customs brokers won't clear the papers. I didn't tell them to stop. I just told them I wasn't there to protect them anymore. Self-preservation did the rest. The waiter arrives. I order a whiskey neat. Marcus orders a sparkling water. So Marcus says, what do you want? A VP title? Corner office? We can match your salary. Add 20%. I don't want a job, Marcus, I say, staring at him. I want autonomy. Explain, I want to build a division within global, strategic accounts. I bring my book of business, my vendors, my contacts, my trust. I run it my way. No interference from your director of vibes or whatever corporate fluff you have. I report to you, and only you. And if I say a truck moves, it moves. If I say we pay a premium to get a driver home for Christmas, we pay it. Marcus taps his finger on the table. You're asking for a fiefdom. I'm offering you an empire, I correct him. Arcadia is bleeding out. By tomorrow morning, their major clients, Amazon, Walmart, Target, will be looking for a lifeboat. I can be that lifeboat, but I steer the ship. Marcus smiles. It's a predatory smile, but I like it. It's honest. Deal, he says, but you have to bring the port of LA with you immediately. We have a backlog. Done, I say. Give me a contract. While we're waiting for the steaks, my phone buzzes again. It's a text from an unknown number. Text, you bitch. You leaked the customs codes. It's Travis. He's moved from professional threats to personal insults. I text back, I didn't leak anything. I just didn't renew the encryption license. It expired at noon. Should have checked the autopay. I take a sip of whiskey. It burns, but it's a good burn. Then a notification pops up that makes my blood run cold. Alert Department of Transportation. Incident report. Arcadia Freight Vehicle 404 involved in multi-car pileup on I-80. Hazmat spill. My stomach drops. Hazmat, that's the chemical load Big Sal was worried about. I call Sal immediately. He answers on the first ring. Judy, tell me you saw it, Sal says. He sounds shaken. I saw the alert. Was it one of ours? Yeah, but listen. It wasn't one of my guys, it was a scab. Non-union driver Travis hired off a digital freight board an hour ago to move the load because we refused. Oh my God, I whisper. The kid didn't have the hazmat endorsement, Judy. He took a corner too fast, jackknifed. Leaked industrial solvent all over the interstate. EPA is en route. This isn't just a delay anymore. This is a federal investigation. I close my eyes. This is what happens. This is the cost of arrogance. It's not just money. It's safety. It's lives. Is the driver okay? I ask. He's in the hospital. He'll live. But Arcadia, they're done, Judy. The DOT is going to ground the entire fleet for a safety audit. Mandatory immediate suspension of operations. I look at Marcus across the table. He sees the look on my face. What happened, he asks. Arcadia just killed itself, I say. Hazmat spill. Scab driver. DOT is shutting them down. Marcus whistles low. The stock is going to zero. Travis doesn't just need a lawyer, I say, standing up. He needs a priest. I grab my bag. Where are you going? Marcus asks. We haven't signed the papers. Draw them up, I say. I have to go make sure none of my people get dragged down with the ship. And then, I have to have a conversation with a very angry father. Old man Henderson, he lands in 2 hours, I say, checking the flight tracker I still have active for his private jet. And I'm going to meet him on the tarmac. This wasn't just business anymore, it was a rescue mission. I didn't go to the airport immediately. I went to the one place I knew Travis wouldn't look, but the people who actually mattered would find me, the archives. It wasn't a library. It was a storage facility in an industrial park where Arcadia kept physical copies of records dating back to the 80s. I had a key. I always had a key. I needed the original indemnity clauses signed by Old Man Henderson, ones that explicitly stated that safety compliance was the sole responsibility of the active CEO. I needed to prove that when I walked out, the chain of custody broke, and the negligence was 100% on Travis. I was digging through a box marked 2015 Hazardous Materials Protocols when the metal roll-up door rattled. I didn't flinch. I knew who it was. You're trespassing, Judy. I turned around. It was Saul Goodman. No, that's not his name, but it might as well be. Arthur Banks, Arcadia's general counsel. 60 years old, suit that cost more than my car, eyes that had seen everything and felt nothing. It's not trespassing if I still have the key, Arthur, I said, holding up a file, and technically I'm doing discovery for my own defense. Arthur sighed and walked in. He didn't look angry. He looked exhausted. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped a spot on a dusty filing cabinet before leaning against it. The DOT is swarming the HQ, Arthur said. They seized the servers. Travis is locked in his office crying. Literally crying, Judy. Crystal is live streaming an apology on TikTok. It's grotesque. He hired a scab for hazmat load, Arthur. What did he expect? He expected you to fix it, Arthur said quietly. He thought you were bluffing. He didn't realize that you were the system. I didn't break it, Arthur, I said, my voice hard. I just stopped holding it together. I know, he said, that's why I'm here. The board is holding an emergency meeting tonight. They want to offer you a settlement, a big one, to come back, to talk to the DOT, to say this was a miscommunication during a transition. I laughed. It echoed in the cold storage unit. A miscommunication? A guy is in the hospital. EPA is scrubbing solvent off I-80. You want me to go under oath and say that's a whoopsie? We want you to save the company, Arthur said. For the employees, for Linda and payroll, for the drivers, I am saving them, I said. I'm moving them. I'm taking a job with Global, Arthur. And I'm taking the good people with me. Arthur's face fell. He knew what that meant. It was the death knell. And Henderson, Arthur asked. Does he know? He knows the stock is tanking. He doesn't know why. But he lands in 40 minutes. He's going to blame you, Arthur warned. He's a father first, a businessman second. He'll see this as betrayal. He can see it however he wants, I said, tucking the file into my bag, but he's going to listen to me. I walked past Arthur. He didn't try to stop me. Judy, he called out as I reached the door. I paused. That email regarding Clause 7B? He said, brilliant, evil, but brilliant. It tied my hands completely. I couldn't even threaten the vendors legally because they were contractually obligated to pause. Read the fine print, Arthur, I said. I wrote it. I drove to the private airfield on the outskirts of the city. The rain had stopped, leaving the sky a bruised purple. I parked near the fence, watching the runway lights flicker on. A Gulfstream G650 descended from the clouds, sleek and white. It touched down with a screech of tires that sounded like a scream. Founder was home. I didn't go to the plane. I wasn't allowed on the tarmac. I waited by the gate where his driver usually picked him up. But the driver wasn't there. The driver was probably stuck in the chaos at HQ, or maybe he'd quit too. The plane taxied to the hangar. The stairs lowered. Old man Henderson descended. He was 72, but he moved like a linebacker. He was on his phone, shouting. Even from 50 yards away, I could see the rage radiating off him. He looked around for his car. He saw nothing. Then he saw my Ford Explorer. I rolled down the window. He stormed over, his coat flapping in the wind. He looked like Lear on the heath. You, he roared, pointing a finger at me. You ungrateful, treacherous, get in, Walter, I said, using his first name. I never used his first name. He stopped. The shock of it silenced him for a second. Get in, I repeated. Your driver isn't coming. Travis fired the dispatch team, so nobody told the limo service your flight was early. I'm the only ride you have. He stared at me, his face red. He looked at the empty parking lot. He looked at his phone, which was likely blowing up with bad news. He yanked the door open and climbed into the passenger seat. Drive, he growled, and start explaining why my company is worth half of what it was this morning. Put your seatbelt on, Walter, I said. Shifting into gear, it's a long story. And it starts with a pair of Lululemon leggings and your son's ego. We peeled out of the airfield. The king and the exile, riding in a 2016 Ford Explorer. You destroyed my legacy, he spat, staring out the window. No, Walter, I said, merging onto the highway. I just turned the lights on. You're the one who left the kids alone with matches. Travis said you hacked the system, locked him out. Travis doesn't know the difference between a hack and an expired password. I left. The system followed me. That's not sabotage, Walter. That's gravity. He stayed silent for a mile. The accident, he said, his voice softer, older, is the driver? He's alive. But the EPA fines will bankrupt the liquidity you have on hand. I have reserves. Not enough to cover a gross negligence suit when the DOT finds out your CEO hired a non-certified driver via an app because he fired the compliance officer. He turned to look at me. His eyes were cold blue steel. So you want your job back, is that it? You want a raise? You want me to fire Travis? I don't want my job back, I said. I'm done, Walter. I'm just doing this courtesy ride so you don't hear it from the news. Hear what? That I'm taking the supply chain with me to global. The silence in the car was deafening. It was the sound of an era ending. You wouldn't, he whispered. I already did. The Port of LA signed the transfer request 10 minutes ago. He looked like he might have a stroke. But then a strange thing happened. He slumped back in the seat and he started to laugh, a dry, wheezing chuckle. Clause 7B, he muttered. I remember when you wrote that. I told you it was overkill. It was insurance, I said, and you cashed it in. I had to. We were approaching the HQ. Police lights were flashing in the parking lot. News vans were set up on the lawn. It looked like a crime scene. Drop me at the back, he said. I drove around to the loading docks. The place where I started 20 years ago. He opened the door. He paused, one foot on the pavement. Judy, he said, yeah, Walter, if I fire him, if I fire Travis, will you stay? I looked at the loading dock. I looked at the crumbling concrete. I looked at the empire I had built with my own blood and stress. No, I said. He nodded. He understood. He slammed the door and walked toward the chaos, a king returning to a burning castle. I put the car in reverse. I didn't watch him go. I had a contract to sign with Marcus. The contract with Global Logistics Corp was thick, 50 pages of legalese on bonded paper. Marcus Thorne sat across from me in his office, which, unlike my old cubicle, had a view of the entire city, including the smoke rising, metaphorically mostly, from Arcadia's headquarters 3 miles east. Standard non-compete is waived, Marcus said, tapping a section with a Montblanc pen. We've also added the autonomy clause you requested. You answer to me and the board, no middle management. I read the text. It was everything I had ever wanted. Respect, authority, pay that actually reflected the fact that I never slept. But as I held the pen, I felt a strange heaviness. I wasn't just signing a job offer. I was signing a death warrant for the place I'd spent half my life. Cold feet? Marcus asked, watching me closely. Phantom limb pain, I replied. I spent 20 years building that network, Marcus. It feels weird to sell it. You're not selling it, Judy. You're rescuing it. Arcadia is radioactive. If those vendors don't move to us, they go under. The small trucking companies, the mom-and-pop warehouses, they need a host. You're the host. He was right. That was the brutal logic of the supply chain. Move or die. I signed. Judith Miller, Senior Vice President of Strategic Operations. Welcome to the dark side, Marcus smiled, sliding a glass of champagne toward me. I prefer to think of it as the winning side, I said, ignoring the drink. Now, can I get a phone? Have work to do? For the next 6 hours, I sat in a leather chair that cost more than my first car and dismantled my old life. I called the Port of Los Angeles. Judy, thank God, we have containers stacked to the moon. Arcadia isn't answering. What do we do? Reroute to Global Code 884, I said. I'm authorizing the transfer. You're at Global? Okay, switching the manifest now. I called the Consortium of Midwest Truckers. Hey boys, it's Judy. I heard about the crash. Listen, if you want your invoices paid this week, you need to bill Global. I'm fast-tracking the vendor setup. We're with you, Judy? Just tell us where to drive. It was a landslide, a mass migration. By 8 p.m., I had moved 60% of Arcadia's active volume to Global. My phone buzzed, a text from Linda at Arcadia. Linda, it's a bloodbath here. Walter fired Travis. Security escorted him out. He was crying, Judy. Actually crying. Walter is in the conference room. He looks old. He's asking for you. I stared at the screen. Travis was gone. The witch was dead, but the house had already fallen. Marcus, I said, I need to step out. You just started, he frowned. I need to close the loop, I said. I drove back to Arcadia. The news vans were gone, but the police tape was still up around the hazmat area. The building looked dark except for the lights on the top floor. The executive suite. My badge didn't work, obviously. I buzzed the intercom. Security, a tired voice answered. It's Judy, I said. There was a pause, then the buzzer buzzed. I walked through the lobby. It was empty, a ghost town. The Employee of the Month plaque still had a picture of Crystal on it. I resisted the urge to rip it down. I took the elevator up. The executive floor was silent. I walked past Travis's office. The door was open. It was trashed. Papers everywhere. Broken vase, a spilled kombucha on the rug, the smell of failure. I walked to the boardroom. Walter Henderson was sitting at the head of the long mahogany table. He was alone. A bottle of scotch was open in front of him. He looked up when I entered. He looked shrunken, defeated. You took them all, he said. It wasn't a question. I took the ones who wanted to survive, I said, remaining standing. Global stock is up 8% in after-hours trading, he muttered. Arcadia is. Quotable trading halted. He poured 2 glasses of scotch. He slid one down the table. It stopped right at the edge near me. I fired him, Walter said. Travis. I cut him off, disinherited him. He's gone, that's good, Walter. But it's a day late, I know. He slammed his hand on the table. I know, I trusted him. He's my son. He's an idiot, Walter, and you knew it. But you let him play CEO because you wanted a legacy. And what is this? He gestured around the empty room. Is this my legacy? No, I said, picking up the glass. I am. He stared at me. I trained the people who actually run this place. I wrote the contracts. I built the relationships. You provided the capital, Walter, but I provided the competence. And when you let that competence walk out the door, you lost the right to the legacy. I downed the scotch. It was expensive. Smooth. I offered you the COO job, he said quietly. In the car. You said no, because I don't want to fix your mistakes anymore, I said. I want to build something new with Marcus Thorne. He sneered. He's a shark. He's a shark who knows not to bite the hand that feeds the logistics network, I said. I put the glass down. I came here to tell you one thing, Walter, Linda, in payroll and the warehouse team, and the dispatchers. Don't screw them. Give them their severance. If I hear that one paycheck bounces, I will poach every single remaining employee you have and leave you with nothing but the copper wire in the walls. Walter looked at me. For a moment, I saw the old fire in his eyes, the respect. They'll be paid, he said. Good. I turned to leave. Judy, he said. I stopped. You were the best I ever had, he said. I know, I said. That's why it cost you so much to lose me. I walked out. I took the elevator down. I walked to my car. I deleted the emergency contact list from my personal phone. They were all in the global database now. I was done. You'd think that after destroying a $1 billion company, I'd go home and sleep for a week. But adrenaline is a hell of a drug, and I was wired. I needed one more thing, a cherry on top of the sundae of destruction. I knew where Travis would go. Not to his dad's house, he'd been kicked out. Not to a hotel. His credit cards were likely frozen by the company lawyers. He'd go to the Omni, a trendy bar where the local influencers hung out. He needed validation. He needed an audience. I drove by. Sure enough, his Tesla, the one with the custom CEO 1 plate, was parked illegally in a loading zone. I parked across the street and watched. Through the window, I could see him. He was at the bar, waving his arms, talking to a group of bored-looking women. Crystal was there too, but she wasn't standing next to him. She was on her phone, thumbing furiously. I pulled out my phone. I still had Crystal's Instagram notifications on. New post from @Crystal Vibes. Image, a selfie of her looking sad with a filter. Caption, sometimes you have to cut toxic people out of your life to protect your peace. New chapter starting. #single life, #boss babe, #not my fault. I laughed out loud in the dark car. She had dumped him. Ship hadn't even fully sunk and the rats were already posting about it. Travis looked erratic inside. He grabbed a woman's arm. She pulled away. The bouncer stepped in. It was pathetic. He wasn't a titan of industry. He was just a drunk kid with a canceled credit card. I decided not to go in. I didn't need to rub it in. Watching him get bounced from a bar was satisfying enough. But then my phone rang. It was Linda. Again. Judy, she whispered. You need to see the company email. The one Travis just sent. He must have bypassed the server lock before he left. I don't have access, Linda. I'll forward it to your Gmail. Read it. I opened the email. From Travis Henderson, CEO, to all staff subject. The truth, you all think Judy is a hero? She's a traitor. She stole our clients. She sabotaged the servers. She's a bitter, old cat lady who couldn't handle the new vision. I am the victim here. My father is senile. I am the future. It was a manifesto of madness. Rambling, misspelled, full of caps lock rage. And then at the bottom, an attachment. Project Vibes Budgetex LSX. He had accidentally attached Crystal's department budget instead of whatever evidence he thought he had against me. I opened the spreadsheet. It wasn't a budget. It was a list of consulting fees paid to various shell companies for personal wellness, retreats, and aesthetic enhancements. He had been embezzling, using company funds to pay for Crystal's lifestyle. This wasn't just incompetence anymore. This was a felony. I forwarded the email to Arthur Banks, the lawyer. Subject, FYI body, you might want to call the FBI before they call you. 10 minutes later, I saw blue lights flashing in the rearview mirror, but they weren't for me. 2 police cruisers pulled up to the Omni. Officers went inside. Moments later, they came out escorting Travis. He was in cuffs. He was screaming, "Do you know who I am? I'm the CEO." I watched them shove him into the back of the cruiser. "No, Travis," I whispered. "You're a liability." I put the car in drive. Now it was truly over. I drove home. My apartment was quiet. Buster, my golden retriever, greeted me with a wagging tail, oblivious to the fact that his owner had just decapitated a corporate dynasty. I sat on my couch. The TV was off. I poured a glass of cheap wine, not the good stuff Marcus had offered. My phone rang. It was Walter Henderson. "He's in jail," Walter said. His voice sounded like broken glass. I said, embezzlement. "Arthur says it's millions. He stole from the pension fund, Judy. That hit me. The pension fund, the money for the drivers. For Marge's husband who drove for us for 30 years. Fix it, Walter," I said. "I can't. The accounts are frozen. The fines, Judy. If the pension is gone, these people have nothing." I closed my eyes. I wanted to destroy Travis. I didn't want to destroy the drivers. "Judy," Walter pleaded, "you have the contracts. You have the leverage. You're with Global now. Can you structure the deal so Global absorbs the pension liability?" It was a massive ask. It would cost Global millions. Marcus would hate it. It made no business sense. But then I thought about Big Sal. I thought about the guys who drove through blizzards. I can try, I said, but it will cost you. Anything. You sell the Arcadia brand to Global for $1. We take the assets, we take the liabilities, we take the pension, you walk away, you retire to Italy. And you never ever come back. You want me to sell my life's work for $1. It's worth less than that right now, Walter. It's negative equity. I'm offering you a clean exit. There was a long silence. Do it, he said. I hung up, I called Marcus. It was 11 o'clock p.m. Judy, change of plans, Marcus. We're not just taking the clients. We're buying the whole damn company. For how much? $1. And the catch, we assume the pension fund liability. Judy, that's sentimental. That's not good business. It's great business, Marcus. We get the fleet. We get the warehouses. We get the drivers, loyal drivers who will know that we saved their retirement. You want loyalty. You buy it? Marcus was silent. He was calculating. You're a shark, Judy, he said finally. A sentimental shark, but fine, draft it. I leaned back on the couch. I had done it. I had destroyed the king, jailed the prince, and usurped the kingdom, and I saved the peasants. I took a sip of wine. It didn't taste like victory. It tasted like exhaustion. But it was the best wine I'd ever had. 3 weeks later, my new office at Global has a glass wall. I can see the harbor from here. I can see the cranes loading containers onto ships. Some of those containers are painted Arcadia blue, but they have a global logistics sticker slapped over the logo. We're calling it the acquisition of the decade. Forbes wrote an article about it. They called me the Iron Lady of Logistics. I hate it, but I framed it for my mom. Travis is out on bail, awaiting trial. Rumors say Crystal is testifying against him in exchange for immunity. She's launching a podcast about surviving toxic workplaces. I subscribed. It's hilarious. Walter is in Tuscany. He sent me a case of wine. I haven't opened it. The drivers kept their pensions. Big Sal sent me a bouquet of flowers that was so big it required a forklift to get it to my desk. The card read, to the boss lady. We roll when you say roll. I sat at my desk, looking at the clean, digital dashboard on my 3 monitors. No paper, no clutter, just efficiency. My assistant, a sharp kid named Leo who actually knows how to use Excel, walked in. Mail call, Judy. He dropped a stack of letters on my desk. I flipped through them. Vendor contracts, thank you notes, and then a small pink envelope. It was from the Department of Corrections. I opened it, a letter from Travis. Handwritten. Judy, you think you won. You're just a cog. You'll always be a cog. I hope you enjoy your cubicle. I looked at my sprawling corner office. I looked at the view of the empire I now commanded. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. He was a ghost, a glitch I had patched. I picked up the letter. I walked over to the shredder. The pink paper turned into confetti. I walked back to my desk. My phone rang. It was Marcus. Judy, we have a situation in the Suez Canal. A ship is stuck. We need a reroute plan. I smiled. I'm on it, I said. I put on my headset. I pulled up the map. The machine was humming, and I was the one holding the wrench. Let's move some freight, I said to the empty room. And for the first time in 20 years, I didn't need a cigarette. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.